Hello and welcome to Life Are We There Yet? The self-progress podcast which seeks out ways to lead as fulfilling a life as possible on this long-haul flight that is life. We are your anything but competent hosts, Isaac Rookmore.
Hello.
And I am Jack Henderson. And on today's episode, we will be talking to someone who got on a flight to Denmark, ran whilst in Denmark, spoke Danish whilst in Denmark, and thought up business ideas whilst, Isaac?
Was he in Denmark?
No, he was in Loughborough. But first, the theme tune.
Up and down, left and right, you say we should, I think we might wander for a while. Up and down, left and right, you say we should, I think we might wander for a while. And we came here from somewhere and we could go anywhere else, just don't ask me, are we there?
Our guest this week is someone who, following the Brexit vote, decided to study on a year abroad in Denmark, although that may have been coincidental. He's also an aspiring businessman, an entrepreneur, and an active long-distance runner, though I doubt you can really be a passive long-distance runner. And he's making him a bit of a triple threat for us, really. You know, that is to say business, active lifestyles, and unusual lifestyles. He is Charlie Rogers, and he is here with us today. Charlie, how are you, sir?
Hi, Jack. Yeah, I'm doing really well. I'm quite excited to be here. I'm almost trying to hold my laughs back at all your jokes so far.
Oh, he's far too kind, isn't he?
But I'm looking forward to this podcast, and it should be really good.
Now, first and foremost, we thought we'd just try and make you feel a little more comfortable, you know, by offering you a few phrases in what I assume is now your mother tongue Danish, and see if you can work out what this idiot beside me is attempting to say. So, Isaac, phrase one, if you would be so kind. I can't wait to see where this goes.
Okay, I'm not promising anything, but here we go.
I'm quite excited here, actually.
Hej hodran gardet.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, yeah! All right, number two.
Hodran redet I dag.
What is the something like?
Yeah.
What is the weather like?
Yeah! I definitely didn't help him out there.
You pointed at a window. I thought you were asking what the window looks like.
What is the window like? And let's round it off with one more. The third and final phrase, please, Isaac. A nice easy one.
I'm getting cocky now, okay. Har den maksimale hastighedsgrænse for en bil, der kører på en dobbeltkorbane?
I guess the Barney on the end is something to do with like a motorway or something. Autobahn?
I'm not going to lie, I'm really impressed you actually got
really
that
good.
much. You know, the point was that you weren't going to get anywhere near this one, and yet you sort of ruined it. You've even got close.
Okay, I'm still guessing.
It's what is the maximum speed limit for a car travelling on a dual carriageway?
Wow, okay.
You know, just nice easy one to round.
Yeah, thank you guys.
So let's crack on then.
Yeah, now down to business.
Hey, business.
If you could, just tell us what you've been doing over the past year. What you got coming up, and we'll go into more detail later, but just a quick overview if you could.
Okay, so basically what's been happening over the last year or so is I've just done my second year at university, and most people going into their third year now are doing a placement, so they're working for a firm. So they've been applying throughout the whole of their second year, and have sort of been doing all of the interviews, all of the sort of assessment centers and everything else like that. I was looking into that when I first started out in September, like everyone else, and then we got to about November time, and I was looking through a few ideas. I was like, I could do these ideas as well. And then I started talking to more and more people, started refining them, and then I was going through, I have a list of 20 or 30 ideas, but I got to one of them where I thought, this is something I'll be really annoyed if I don't do now and someone else does. So we got to November, and I talked to about 10, 15 people about the idea, got some feedback. And then I just decided to turn down the current jobs that we're going for. I was going for a Deloitte one and an Atos one for tech consultancy, which would have been pretty cool as well, to be fair. But I think I wanted to do this in my life anyway, so I want to do it now and sort of see how it went from there. And so I've been building up from November time on to now, while I've been in Denmark and while I've been back. And then I got to January time, did my first semester exams, and then went away to Denmark. I've been doing that for the last 6 months. And I've just come back recently.
I think I could detect a little bit of a Danish lilt in the voice now. I don't know how sort of put on it is. But.
No, I've definitely been told that before, actually. It's not been put on, but people keep saying you don't sound fully British anymore.
Yeah, get
It's quite
out.
sad.
Brexit means Brexit, people.
Not if you're European.
So you're clearly more qualified than both of us two.
That is fair to say.
I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about the business ideas that you've got. What their USPs are, jargon, and sort of what percentage of the business you're willing to offer us in return for our cooperation.
What sort of cooperation are we talking?
I don't know. I've
making
only watched The Dragon's Den
Oh, okay.
twice.
That's some pretty big experience.
Yeah, The Dragon's Den. It's just Dragon's Den, isn't it? Anyway, yes. What are your business ideas? Your
Okay.
plans to make millions?
Well, my main one that I'm focusing on is one called Posty, where we're going to build these parcel receiving boxes to put outside homes. So where are you receiving your post when you're not in? Because I know, especially for people in rural areas, this can be really, really annoying. Having to go into the town centre or having to collect it from a certain location or leave it with your neighbour.
Yeah, the most annoying thing, when you've been out and you come home and you get that little slip that says you weren't in when we delivered.
Yeah, that red slip.
Oh.
That's a
Damned
life
red
changer.
slip.
So I want to solve that problem mostly. Obviously, when you come up with these kind of ideas to begin with, you think, "Wow, okay, this is definitely a new idea. I'm so unique." And then you do a Google search, and it's someone else is doing it. But I think you've got to realize the USPs and how you can differ from the market to begin with. So
Just for anyone that is, what is USP for anyone that?
a unique selling point.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm glad I got that one. Okay, so why is mine different than anyone else's? Well, I want to build it to be a electronic lock-based system, so it responds to a phone app in the future, but in the short term to a code you put into a box. And I think that this would be really good because it would basically allow you to track deliveries more easily for both the courier and the homeowner.
Yeah.
And also, I want to go for a much lower price point. All of them at the moment are really, really overpriced at like £250, like £150. Mm-hmm. And I was doing some quick maths the other day, and I was doing a bit of addition. I was thinking, if you probably waste £4 a trip to go and collect your parcel, say you miss it, and say you miss a parcel every other week, so once every fortnight, you do that for a year, that's already £100. So if I price mine at retail price £100 and then go and Kickstarter it at a bit less than that, then I think we've got a right price point.
Well, I think the demand for deliveries is constantly rising, but the amount of people that live in rural areas, it's never going to change. We're seeing all these housing developments go up, but rural's still going to mean rural. I mean, where we're recording this right now, it's right out in the sticks. So I mean, something like that would be really handy.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty true. I think I saw an article the other day on maybe BBC or Guardian, and it was saying about how 20,000 people in the retail sector have lost their jobs this year already. So that's definitely a changing market and something that we want to get on board for.
When you're going into a market that's sort of delivery based and that area, is there sort of competition from big giants like Amazon a bit of a concern when you're sort of starting out?
I mean, it is, but
because they
not when
seem
you're
to
starting
own,
out.
they seem to own everything. They just seem to run the world.
Yeah, they do. But they also come up with just as many bad ideas as they do good ideas. Have you seen their promotional video for Amazon Key?
No.
Okay, that's basically where they replace a lock on your door, so the courier can enter your house by unlocking the door.
Is this like the pitch for a horror film? Because
Yeah, that's what the reviews said anyway. There were pretty negative reviews from that. So not everything they do is perfect, but if it's a good enough idea, we'll see.
You heard it here first. Charlie Rogers is taking on the giants that are Amazon.
Of course.
Mark our words.
So do you think it's a good time for people our age to be starting out in business? I mean, I've sort of attempted to. It's nothing on your scale because you're sort of looking at developing a product where I'm sort of offering a service, as you will. And is it easier to network with the rise of social media and things like that, or are you still finding that the face-to-face contact with people is the way to go?
That's a good question. I wouldn't say that you doing a service is lesser to a product. In fact, it's actually pretty equal. I think that people can develop a business based on services. I mean, what are the biggest ones at the moment? They're all app-based services, aren't they? That's what everyone uses. But is it the right time for everyone to be doing this? Perhaps not. I think it has to come down to whether you think you have an idea or you really want to do it. You have to have a sort of passion for it. But if you're being held back by societal pressure, then really you should neglect that and go on and just get ahead and start doing it, because that's one of the most important things.
I think when you've got an idea, and it's like when you said you first conceive an idea and you think, oh, this is amazing, no one else has thought of this, and it's going to be the best thing in the world, and I'm going to love doing it forever. It sometimes, certainly with us and the podcast, give it 2, 3, 4 months to really think on it, let it sort of grow and dwell, and see if you really still have the same sort of drive and passion for it then, and then think, right, yeah, I'm really properly keen to do this, so I'm just going to sort of jump head first. And yeah, absolutely right. The fact that still societal pressure holds back a lot of people, whatever it may be, whether it's doing your own startup or being who you want to be, it is one of the hardest things to do is let go of that. I'm still rubbish at it. You're still rubbish at it, I think.
There, aren't we? Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're absolutely right in that it's one of the key things you need to do to probably move forward, I guess.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to attach your face or something. Like a lot of people will neglect their face and be like, oh, I don't want to be associated with my own thing that I'm doing, even though I'm really passionate about it. I did the big click the other day. I invited all my friends to like my page, and I was a big like heart sort of skipped a beat, and I was tense, my fingers are nervous, and I was like, oh.
You wait for the first few reactions, and you're just expecting it to be like, oh, what the hell are you doing this?
Yeah, and then it comes around, and the people who do respond are all really positive about it, and the ones that don't really care.
I mean, that's been the same for us. It's all about putting a personal brand out there. It's just as important as putting a brand out there and building a company is having that face behind a company. All the bigger companies have these people that represent them, so that's really important.
Yeah, you don't want to lose that intimacy. I think certainly, from our point of view with something like a podcast, when I listen, it's like listening to mates in your ears, that kind of thing. You're sort of a fly on the wall in the conversation. So with our brand, and with the same with yours, you get the face on it. It makes people feel more involved.
Yeah,
to an extent.
I definitely think that's true. I think it's true that people associate way more with a person rather than a logo or a brand name. Like you feel
they can feel a bit cold. Yeah.
Yeah. You can feel like you're a lot more connected to the person, and that from my angle anyway, I want to explain what I'm learning and to sort of open up the opportunities for young entrepreneurs as well. Because for me, it's something that I want to fail in this next year. I want to make mistakes and I want to learn from them. And that's the most important thing. If you go in that mindset of I want to fail, then when you come out, you'll have done a lot more than that.
I tried that with my driving test recently and it worked. So, second time lucky.
Okay, maybe in things like that, it's a bit different.
I remember seeing on Facebook, I think it was, a lot of uni students or business uni students seem to do it. It's this Enactus thing.
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
I've sort of seen it. Quite a few of my friends from Southampton have done it as well.
Oh, Southampton's big.
Is it?
Yeah. It's got one big five.
Big five. So what exactly is Enactus?
Okay.
Enlighten us on Enactus.
I could talk about this for days.
Please don't.
I won't. But I think Enactus, it's basically where we set up social enterprises, so businesses that bring benefit to people and put core values as benefiting those in society and having beneficiaries rather than just being profit-based. So in our situation, it's a society within the Students' Union, but in other ones, it's actually independent of the university. So it can be like a charity, and the Southampton, the Nottingham, and the few other ones like Sheffield are really big. They have like 40k revenue each year. They're actually pretty big companies. They're making some big money, and to get to become like the president of those is actually quite difficult. So last year in April, I was part of it in my first year at uni, and we went and did like a presentation down in London, and we managed to basically go along and get to the top 5 the first time ever, which is really, really exciting. Against all these big like 40k revenue people, like we
You're just wondering, like, why am I here?
Yeah, no, we were just
I'm gonna
presenting.
get found out.
Yeah, we were just presenting a sort of more, and I felt like it was more personal touch with what we were doing, because we gave like a story throughout our presentation and really linked everything that was benefiting the person to them saying it rather than us. So I think it came across a lot better than anything else.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Honestly, I mean, you've already touched on sort of the collaboration of these different skill sets. You know, you've clearly got sort of the business mind, but you're not afraid of the arts too. Is that right? Fair to say?
Yeah, I think there's arts within every business. I think everyone can be a creative person. Everyone's got room for creativity in them, and I think there's definitely arts can definitely become a thing in anything you do. It's really great to be creative and really great to show different sides of your personality and different sides of what you're interested in.
No, I think there's much more scope for big sort of collaborative projects where you get lots of, say, you know, creative types involved and also business-minded people involved, because there are just, in the way that there were fewer jobs, say 50 years ago, you know, you would say be a plumber for your whole life. There are so many thousands of different kinds of jobs now in today's world that it's almost inevitable, really, that you're going to have the opportunity to collaborate with lots of different kinds of people.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, especially at university, you meet these kind of people and that they come from these diverse backgrounds. And when you put together, you can create something really special.
So you're looking to sort of build a team as you go, or are you going to continue to be sort of the solopreneur, as they put it? Or you've got a business partner, I believe.
Yeah, I do. So with my main business, the Posty One, I've got a business partner that I'm living with next year. So that's going to be quite exciting, making sure we find the right dynamic between business and social life. I mean, we get on really well anyway, so we should be able to find the balance, but I think that'd be quite a fun task and challenge. But I think it's really good having someone else to bounce ideas off, because a lot of the time you'll be thinking, wow, okay, this is the next big thing. And then you go and talk to someone, they're like, this is why it can't work. And you're like, okay, fair. And you take it on board and you find some midpoint that could actually work.
At the same time, though, if you're on your own, you also have that thing where if you start, as opposed to when you're like, yeah, this is amazing, you've got that feeling where you're not quite sure if you've got an idea that's worth pursuing, and you've got a bit of self-doubt about it. Having someone else to actually, sort of consult with, and for them to go, yeah, actually, that's a really good idea. Otherwise, you may find yourself ditching could be something very beneficial, you know, potentially.
Yeah, that's definitely pretty true as well.
I am incredibly jealous of the fact that you got to spend, well, I thought it was a whole year, but just a semester.
Yeah, just a semester 6 months,
over in Denmark, and I resent you very much for it. I wonder what were the highs of your time there, and if there were any lows, what were they like, and how did you cope with them, I suppose? You know, talk Denmark to us.
Yeah, I can talk Denmark. I feel
Isaac can't.
I feel like the time you spend on exchange is like doing the whole university experience within 6 months. So it's kind of like breaking it down and sort of shoving it into a much smaller space of time. You go there and everyone's really keen to make new friends. Everyone's like, wow, okay, yeah, really cool. Like, let's go out and do this, let's go out and do that. And then when you get to the sort of 3rd, 4th week and you think, ooh, who are my real friends? You know, who am I actually going to be friends with at the end of this? And then you start settling in, you start building those actual friendships, and you start meeting other people from your activities, your sports, and you bring it all together. And by the time I left, I was really feeling like I made some good friends there. So I think the experiences is definitely one of the highs. Like, you get a time when people will just post on a WhatsApp group, hey, do you want to go down to Odense for the weekend? And you could just...
Bless you.
Thank you. And you would just say, yeah, sure, I've never even been with this person before or met them, but by the end of the trip, you're friends. And I think that's a really powerful thing from exchange, is just being able to have these spontaneous friendships.
Is it fair to say that it sort of pushed you out of your comfort zone? Because I feel like traveling is one of the ultimate ways you can really do that. You know, when you're going somewhere, even with a similarly Western culture, you've still got that geographic separation, the language barrier, and things like that. So would you say exchange would be something you'd recommend on the balance of things? Yeah,
I would definitely recommend it. I think for most people, it's going to be the way to get out of your comfort zone, because you're going to have to be in this scenario where you make the friends, and that necessity of making friendships in that first week is going to be really, really important. But I think also that you'll be pushing yourself in other ways. Like you said with the language barrier, I mean, in the Danish case, they all speak perfect English, but in any case of traveling abroad, you'll always have some sort of language barrier and some sort of, I don't really understand what's going on here. And putting yourself in a foreigner's shoes is really helpful as well, because you get to really understand what it's like to be in the UK when you're not even from the UK.
Just make sure you give the shoes back once you're done with them.
Yeah, that's what.
Yes, it's really interesting. I mean, we want to look at the idea of Hygge. I'm sure we'll cover that. I'm sure we'll cover that as we go on. But you know, as Brits, as a nation, could we learn a thing or two from what the Danes do? You know, their work-life balance, their productivity, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think we really could. I did a whole sort of paper on this kind of thing. I wrote about the Danish society and the welfare state and why it's quite important. But I think what you could really learn is their approach to people and the way in which they have a sort of solid foundation on relationships and how important it is that they have those friendships and there's parents and there's family around them that's going to support them through everything. And when they approach work in general, they think they have a 37-hour work week and 5 weeks paid leave every year, but they're still just as productive as the UK. So that really tells you that they spend the time at work actually working much harder, but they spend the time away actually relaxing and enjoying themselves. And I think that's really important in modern day society because for a lot of us, it's really hard to switch off. I was recently reading a book on addiction and how all these devices are keeping us addicted and what ways that's very similar to substance addiction. And I think that's really true nowadays is you just really can't switch off from everything. You can't have time away. And I think it's really good they have that focus on the work-life balance.
It's like Isaac and I both listened to a podcast called The Ground Up Show, and the guy that hosts that, Matt Devella, I think he sets himself, an hour of the day right at the start to check his emails and to check Instagram or whatever, and then he doesn't let himself check social media at any other time during the day because it's a sort of, it sinks your time, and you can waste a hell of a lot of time doing actually not very much. That's
a pretty impressive restraint that is throughout the entire day. But there's some apps you can download on your phone as well that track how much time you spend on certain apps and with your phone open. And I did that last week.
Oh, braver man than I.
Yeah, and wow, the results are pretty scary. Yeah. You think, I'm not one of those people that spends ages on the phone, but by the end of the day, you clocked up 3 hours. You're like, wow, okay, where did that time go? And you open up the app and you go down, you're like, wow, okay, that's like an hour and a half on Instagram. Oh God. But yeah, I think there's something for everyone in this. I think it's definitely something that you should bring in from Denmark, especially also the way in which they feel very homely and together when they have events. I don't know, there's a certain sort of feeling. I won't say the word Hygge because we won't go crazy again. There's Jack
fighting it back.
But I think
Hygge.
There's events where I've just sat in a park with some friends and we've been around a bonfire and everyone's just sort of listening to music together. It's that kind of feeling of togetherness and no one really having to stand out all the time, which is really nice as well. And that's quite a nice takeaway, is this lesser sort of focus on individualism and more on collectivism, and the idea that we should all be part of society rather than having people striving higher than others. I think it's one of the places which has the lowest income spread between different people as well. So there's people actually on relatively similar incomes. There's quite a big middle class in Denmark, and I think that really shows.
I do have a question. I've been holding it back, but what is Hygge?
Okay, what is Hygge?
And would you say there's a British equivalent?
I think with Hygge, the number one way of showing it or explaining it probably is imagine yourself around a campfire with a book in your hand. Jack has a book in his hand right now. And you're with all your best friends, you've got blankets on, you're under the midnight stars, and you're seeing everything around you and just taking it all in. I think it's to focus on relationships as the core of anything you do, but I also think it's having that feeling of coziness as well. If you combine those two, you probably always have Hygge. Like, it could be as vague as sitting somewhere where it's raining outside and you're sat up in a blanket with a hot chocolate in your hands and you're kind of half reading a book. Or it could be you're outside with your friends having a great time, the sun's shining. It can be both weather dependent, but I think it's a really good way for them to get through the winter months because it can get really, really dark in the Nordic countries. And
so do you think it's sort of a concept that's, and a lifestyle that's evolved out of necessity?
I wouldn't say necessity. Maybe they found a way of coping, but it's become bigger than that. So it may be a necessity to begin with, but it's become much broader. Like a very good way of showing it would be the candles, the way in which they consume twice as many candles as Austria, the next biggest nation in Europe, which is pretty amazing. I think that shows the Hyggeness and the coziness together as well.
So one of the things we wanted to look at in more detail was the impact in different ways that leading an active lifestyle can have on your life. We hear you're a very keen runner, both track distances and half marathons. What's your relationship with running? Does it help you in any way?
Okay, well, the first thing to point out is it's a love-hate relationship. You absolutely love it when it's going well. You're beating your times, you're on top of the world, and everything's going well for you. But when it's going bad, it can be quite the opposite. It can be, oh, I'm putting so many hours into this, but it's really going nowhere. So I think it's about finding that balance for me. It's teaching me a lot about self-control and about managing my own emotions. But I think when you get out of that, you get the sort of, I need to satisfy my subconscious sometimes and take a break from it. But also you need to sort of be head first and kind of headstrong and be like, yeah, I need to do this. I want to do this, and we'll get through it. I think doing the races in particular, especially the longer ones, really teach you that. They really teach you how to push through when you really don't want to. Because I did a half marathon about 3 to 4 weeks ago in Aarhus when I was there. And the last 3K of that, half marathon's 21K by the way, the last 3K were pretty rough. I'd been up and down hills, been very undulating, and then we got just to the end and I was like, oh, I don't really want to do it. My subconscious is like, no, come on, man, you gotta take a step, take a breather. But I was just thinking, oh, one more K and we'll think about it. That's always my mindset to it, is either one more K, one more rep.
Make it manageable chunks. You know?
Yeah, make it manageable and make it so it's a decision you make in the future. Like, let's just think about it in the future, but let's just keep running for now. And you eventually get there and it's worked out really well.
Yeah, but it's mad. What time did you end up managing?
I was 1 hour 23. That's ridiculous. And it was definitely, I definitely put my whole heart into that, shall we say, because as soon as I crossed that finish line, I was right in the first aid tent.
So basically the takeaway from this episode is everyone needs to learn how to run half marathons in 1 hour 23, and we will be very disappointed if you don't.
That's the perfect takeaway, yeah. I mean, just don't necessarily run that fast, but run to beat yourself. As long as you're focusing on beating yourself, that's the most important thing, because you'll learn so much about self-focus and about your own personal goals rather than in comparison to others. And that's really important for your day-to-day life and your entrepreneurial life if you have one like that.
Yeah. So were you able to combine running with your year abroad, or your 6 month abroad in Denmark, or was it pretty full on?
I managed to combine them pretty well, actually. I just come back from a injury last year. An injury, I don't really know what it was, but some sort of problem last year. And we got to about September time and I'd given the all clear for the tests. And then I started ranking up my training a bit. Got to do some 5Ks in the first semester. And then when I went out to Denmark, I was really delighted to meet some runners there. I met an American girl who showed me around and showed me to a group called Aarhus 1900, and we went and did nice track sessions and long runs in the sort of winter months. There were some of the coldest days of my life. They were minus 15 degrees.
You are a brave man.
But no, minus 15 degrees is not the funnest time to run, but it can be the most rewarding time when you do push yourself through those hard sessions.
You realize this is meant to be encouraging people to start running or get running, not detract or deter them.
But I think showing the reality of it definitely makes it more applicable than anything else. Like, you got to understand that it'll be difficult sometimes, but if you get through those difficult months or difficult times, it'll be way more rewarding at the end. So I know I was building up towards this 10K that I did in the middle of March, and that's what was really my training plan from the first half of my semester abroad. And the guys there in Denmark really helped me achieve that and get a good time for that one.
I think obviously with something like training for a half marathon, but I think it's fairly applicable universally. If you give yourself a target or a goal, it's much easier to stick to. Because I ran a couple of half marathons, nowhere near the times you've achieved, but I ran a couple of them, and obviously training, having to train for it, because you can't, unless you dropped out, you can't allow yourself to sort of fail in a way. So it keeps you on track and it keeps you training. Whereas in the recent months, I've not been on many runs, shall we say, just because the motivation isn't quite there as much, and I've not got something which I'm working and building towards. But yeah, not even just with running, just setting yourself targets, realistic and manageable targets as well. If you're in the gym, say, don't write a ridiculous workout which you're not going to be able to do, because you'll just sort of bail on it a quarter of the way through. Whereas if you set yourself something a little bit more manageable, you'll probably be more productive and feel better as a result.
I think
for doing so.
That's pretty true. I think if you want to do a race, the first thing to do is to sign up, because as soon as you've done that, you're committed to it, and you have to find a way of getting the time you want from it. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be learned from running, and a lot people can apply their own lives from doing it. I think it's definitely something everyone should try. Maybe it's not the sport for you, but maybe you can take aspects from it that you can enjoy. But you've got to love the process with all these things, with running, with doing business, with entrepreneurship. You've got to love doing the day-to-day tasks. Because if you don't love that, then there's nothing really holding you back once you achieve those goals. Because you can hit the goal and then you can think to yourself, wow, what next? But if you
That's
love
a very
the process,
business
you get
mindset,
higher and
isn't it?
higher.
Yeah.
You just gotta love getting those people in every day, or
Never
getting
quite
those,
satisfied,
getting those
yeah.
legs moving every day. But yeah, as soon as you move on to achieving certain goals, it can be quite. I think there's a story of a 1968 Olympics long jumper. Maybe it's more prominent in long jumping because you can't really apply it to other things. But he'd won 22 out of 23 of his previous competitions, and he went into the Summer Games, and he managed a personal best, which is also a world record by quite a far margin, which stood unbeaten for 24 years afterwards. So as soon as he won, he felt the elation. He felt that, oh my God, I've just won. I've just beaten the world record. I've just done my ultimate goal. But then within half an hour afterwards, he quit the sport and started signing up for a master's program because he'd achieved all he could in that. He had the goal mindset where he wanted to get a certain thing out of it. But because he didn't necessarily love the process, he loved the goal setting, then that's probably what really came to hit him in the long run.
I think it's about striking a balance as well, because when you're very goal driven and fixed on solely goals, you can burn out really easily, I think. And as you said, even if you say do manage to accomplish the goals you've set yourself, you at what cost? Sometimes it's about reeling it in a bit.
Yeah, it's definitely true.
And keeping a bit of perspective on things, that if I don't happen to achieve this, or if I'm not quite where I want to be, or where I feel I should be, then that's okay.
Yeah. It's definitely okay to not have achieved your goals. Like, you might set them, maybe they're a bit unrealistic at times, but if you get somewhere near, so it is a common saying, isn't it? If you aim for the stars, you'll probably hit the moon. Like, you want to aim high, but maybe if you don't achieve that, always look back on what you've done and be quite proud of it still.
Yeah, you should always aspire, and you should always have goals and dreams. It's just, making sure you're doing it for the right reasons, keeping them in sort of in check about, why it is that you're really going for them. And if you're fully driven and believe in it, then go for it. But just always take a minute to really think about whether it's the right thing for you to do.
Yeah, and definitely don't do it because everyone else is doing it. Do it for your own sake and your own values.
You've also, I think, had an idea for an app of sorts. Was it an app?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so why didn't you tell us a bit about that?
Okay, yeah, I can tell you a bit about that. So this is something that I want to work on as a bit of a side project over this next year. It's basically an app that allows you to read foreign news in different levels of difficulty. So have like a basic, a intermediate, and advanced levels. So there'll be a sort of API at the top, some sort of thing you can put on top so you can translate it. But I think it'll be really useful for learning keywords from the news, but also culturally ingraining yourself within the society.
What was an API? Sorry, I'm very ignorant.
An API is something you can just put on top of an app that allows you to act in a certain way or certain function. I'm not sure exactly what it stands for. I'm not too in the knowledge on app development, but I'm pretty sure you can use them that way. But I have a friend who I'm working with on this one who does build apps, so that's why.
You know a guy.
Yeah, I know a guy. Everyone knows a guy. But yeah, it should be really cool. It should be something that I felt that I would have wanted when I was on exchange. And I think there's a lot of internationals in different cities around the world who would be really interested in having this kind of idea. Like, I did a bit of market research, asked a few people, got some feedback from about 50 people. And I think 95% of them said that they'd use the app. So that's a pretty good market base for it.
Yeah, I mean, what you've done is not limit yourself to the one idea, and the ideas are substantially different and in different markets, different fields. So that just goes to show that you can evolve and, hopefully go on to, to great success and different ideas, and keep developing. It's great.
I know a lot of entrepreneurs and business people, they have their businesses, their ideas, they grow them to a point and then sell them on, and then it's on to the next thing. Would you say you're that way inclined? Say if Posty took off, would you then wait for it to reach its sort of peak saturation point value wise and then sell it off and move on? Or is it something your real sort of baby that you want to grow and nurture.
Well, say if Amazon came knocking and said, "Oh, here's £5 million, we'll buy your company." I'll be like, "Yeah, sure." I'll look into the next thing. Like you said, I'm not really attached to Posty that much. Like, it's something I'm passionate about now, and it's something I want to build now. But in the future, I can see myself working in other things, like I already am. Like, I diversify myself because I want to try different parts of the world, different markets, different people, and interact with as much as I can, really, and try and get as much as you can out of this life.
So that pretty much brings us to a close for this week. But we physically can't let you leave until you give us a bit of a quote for the Instagram.
That's very menacing.
We need those sound bites. So Charlie, if you could give us a piece of advice, maybe drawn from the different things that you're interested in, your time in Denmark. What advice would you give to sort of close on?
It has to be quotable.
I can give you a nice quote that I kind of live by, which will probably sum up this one best for you. He who thinks he can and he who thinks he can't are both usually right. So what I mean by this is you can do whatever you put your mind to, and it's the mindset in the beginning which matters the most.
Hard work will always trump natural talent.
Indeed.
Well,
indeed it will.
for most things.
Yeah, I think if you combine both natural talent and hard work, you've got something special there.
And where can people find you on the social medias, the Tweetosphere and Instagram and such like?
Well, I'm mostly sharing the content that I'll be doing on my entrepreneurial blogs on Facebook. So it's just at Charlie Rogers Entrepreneur on Facebook. And then if you want to just follow my personal life a bit more and see more about other things that I'm doing, the Instagram space is for that one, Charlie Rogers _98.
Thank you very much, Charlie. You've been a brilliant guest. One thing you lovely listeners can do, which really does help us out, is pop onto iTunes and leave a cheeky review, preferably nice, though we completely understand if not. It would just help us reach a much bigger audience, which we'd obviously love to do. We were going to have a lovely pub meal. We're not anymore because, Isaac, you've let me down. That's changed. So that's a shame. But no, all that leaves me to say is, Charlie, thank you very much. Isaac, my dear, thank you as always for your co-hosting in production witchcraft. And as always, just keep plodding along. Goodbye.